Neeraj sir, okay, go ahead. We are live now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Amit. Thank you so much for starting. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates and professionals from various organizations across the nation. Myself, Neeraj Arora, I am Senior Director at ASSOCHAM and look after the Environment and Climate Change Council of ASSOCHAM and the GEM Green Building Certification Program of ASSOCHAM. So, myself, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, Climate Bond Initiative and Sustain Mantra, would like to welcome you all to this wonderful webinar. I would like to welcome all our eminent speakers to this wonderful webinar. So our today's topic is waste management, key driver for circular economy, opportunities for investments. So friends, as we all know that the management of waste in many metro cities, not in India, but across the world, are at crisis level, with landfills being well over their capacity, causing concerns about groundwater contamination, leading to accident, and also in certain cases, deaths to wreck pickers. And generation of waste is only likely to increase. So with this context, ASSOCHAM, Environment Council, Climate Change Council, Climate Bond Initiative, and Sustain Mantra are jointly organizing this webinar to discuss on waste management, key driver for circular economy, opportunities for investment. And we have with us eminent speakers, starting with Mr. Sean Kidney, who is the CEO, Climate Bond Initiative, Mr. Sandeep Patel, Chief Executive Officer, NEPRA, Mr. Masood Malik, Chairman, ASSOCHAM Council on Environment and Climate Change, and Joint Managing Director, Remkes Group, Ms. Shobha Raghavan, Chief Operating Officer, Sahas Zero Waste, and Ms. P. Benisha, Executive Director, International Institute of Waste Management. And we have our moderator for the day, Mr. Shailendra Singh, who is the founder and CEO of Sustain Mantra. I would like to extend my thanks to our supporting associations, Sustain Mantra, GEM Green Building Council, ASSOCHAM, NEPRA, and Sahas Zero Waste. So I would like to introduce our moderator for the day, and then I will hand over the charge to our moderator, and he will introduce the speakers in details and will take the program forward. So Mr. Shailendra, as I mentioned, is the founder and CEO of Sustain Mantra. He is a sustainable development and circular economy strategist with keen appreciation of the impact of climate change on business models. Bachelor of Chemical Engineering and MBA, he has over 3 decades of technical and commercial experience in chemicals, plastic, and packaging with leading global MNCs in Asia Pacific region in senior leadership roles. He has held board positions in the Indian Institute of Packaging, Society of Plastic Engineers, India, and other organizations like AIPMA. His company, Messrs. Sustainable Mantra, focuses on demystifying sustainability and circular economy for the MSME sector. He is also managing partner in Messrs. Green Easy, LLP consultants to the built environment, and a believer in the 4 C's: collaboration, commitment, commerce, and communication, as being essential to enable transition and circular economy. So welcome, Shailendra ji. Over to you. Please go ahead. Unmute, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Neeraj ji, for that quick overview of the topic of the day today and for my introduction. Let me start by just putting some house rules for the audience. I wanted to give a big thank you for everyone who's on the webinar for taking some time out, and I promise that the next hour and a half will be pretty exciting and learning for all of us. Let me also thank ASSOCHAM and the Climate Bond Initiative and for all our panelists for taking time out and preparing for this event. Quickly on the house rules, please mute your phones, etc. Use the chat box if you have any questions. Kindly post those questions, and we have Sandeep Bhattacharya who's be curating and putting those questions together. We have an eminent panelist, so I think don't hold back. What's on your mind? A quick overview of the next hour or so. Presentation by Sean Kidney will set the context for this webinar, followed by Mr. Masood Malik, macro view of what's the state of affairs of environment in India and what are some of the opportunities as he sees it, followed by the panelists who will get into, and myself along with them, get into the woods, as they say, to delve deeper into the question. Hopefully at the end of the hour, hour and a half, we would have all learned something valuable from this time. The time scheduled is for 2 hours. We were planning to end by 6 o'clock, but my endeavor will be to give you back 10-15 minutes of your time since we are on a Friday and coming close to a weekend. So without sort of further ado, let me, I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Sean Kidney. He's the CEO of the Climate Bond Initiative, an international NGO working to mobilize global capital for climate action. Projects include green bond definition and certification schemes with over $34 trillion of assets represented on its board, working with the Chinese Central Bank on how to grow green bonds in China, market development programs in Brazil, Mexico, ASEAN, and Africa, and market tracking services for the green bond industry. He was a member of the 2017 EU High-Level Expert Group on Sustainable Finance and is a member of its successor, the EU Technical Expert Group on Sustainable Finance. He's also a member of the Green Committees in China, India, Mexico, and Kazakhstan. Sean is also a professor in practice at SOAS University of London. So welcome, Sean. Thank you for taking time and being with us. And, you know, before we get into the complex subject of waste management, let me ask you a simple question and then hand over the mic to you. Who is going to be the next president of the United States of America?
Oh, that is simple. The decision's made.
Oh, it's about, okay.
I'm sorry, we've
Right.
got some reverb here, but hopefully our producers can figure out where that's coming from. But the Biden camp has made it very clear that the votes are their way in multiple states. They only need to win 2 states of the many multiple states that they're going their way. And it's pretty clear they've won Arizona and Nevada already. So they're over. Biden's, in my view, in. What we now have to put up with is the noise of Trump launching multiple legal actions to try and delay the process and confuse the process, which is fairly standard Donald Trump tactical behavior. Nothing, no surprises there. But you only had to see the look on Donald Trump's face on election night to know they'd lost. And unfortunately, the official news could well take a few more days before we know. But we're now planning absolutely on a Biden presidency. Unfortunately for the climate agenda, the Senate will remain in Republican hands. We'll see if there's a change in views on the Republican side about climate now that the presidency has moved. That change of view is critically important for India. India is the most exposed major economy in the world to the effects of climate change. The impacts in India potentially are terrifying, particularly heat stress in northern India in the pre-monsoon period, which is expected to get very severe in coming years. And frankly, we are likely to see large-scale deaths, which will make COVID look like a Saturday afternoon picnic. That's what we're looking at now, let alone the coastal protection issues and the prospect of the monsoon failing 1 year in 5, as is currently predicted by weather modelers. So you know, India's fate, I'm going to say, is going to be significantly determined by the transition of power in the US. If the US chooses not to take action on emissions, it's no longer the world's largest emitter. That's that funny country north of you, the other side of the Himalayas. That's the largest, which is taking action. If the US chooses, it will delay our chances to get emissions down and to have some kind of future for exposed Indian populations that is sustainable going forward. It'll delay it significantly and may well remove it entirely. So this is a pretty important election for the story we're talking today. But I'm very hopeful. And as I've basically said, my understanding is from the Biden camp, the decision's basically made. But of course, I need to just be careful there and say, of course, the decision's never actually made till the official announcement comes out. So let's see. Shailendra, thanks for the question. I guess I'd better turn to my presentation, Shailendra. Shall I go?
Yeah, you're ready to go. Yes, it's all yours, Sean.
Okay, let me see if I can get the presentation up. I hope you can see this.
Yes, we can.
Great. I just want to do a couple of background facts and stats about the green bonds in India, because essentially what we have is a situation where we know that the challenge of addressing waste and all the issues around related to India are massive and huge. And we're blessed to have today a panel of people who are expert on the details of that. So thank you all for joining us. We know that the capital investment requirements will be large. What we're looking at doing is making people understand that these are climate investments, linking it back to what is already a growing appetite globally for climate investments to make it easier for the waste industry to raise capital. That's it. So we've had some wins so far. The global green bond market has grown dramatically. It's about $1 trillion US outstanding now. It's growing rapidly again after a crash in March, like most world economies, this year. Green bond issuance will surpass this year's, and will grow dramatically. The European Union, for example, has committed to issuing $250 billion of green bonds, nearly the same as total issuance last year, to fund its recovery and resilience package. So we will see rapid growth in the coming year of this particular market. And we've seen the daughters of the green bond market, the sustainability, the social, the COVID bond, the pandemic bond market, grow very fast, which use the same model of use of proceeds bonds. That is a bit like if you want to borrow, Shailendra, money from your uncle to buy a car, the uncle says to you, look, that's fine. I know you'll guarantee it and you'll pay me back, Shailendra, but I'd like you to buy an electric car because I think they're going to be lower risk going forward. And you say, sure. And every New Year or Diwali, you come back and take him for a drive, so you've still got the electric car. That's the reporting aspect of green bonds. It's very simple, right? That's all it is. Now, this market is growing remarkably fast, including by sovereigns around the world. So we will see $1 trillion a year issuance within a couple of years. Plus, we will see the other variations of the market, which are all related, social, SDG, and so on, using the same format, growing fast. That's the opportunity. In hard currencies, we see significant price advantage. We've seen dramatic growth in Asia, with China being now the world's largest green bond market, but also in ASEAN. The Philippines has done a lot. Indonesia has done a number of sovereign green sukuk in that case. Japan is large, and of course, India itself. India issuance has been choppy. It's been low this year. Well, we've been a bit preoccupied with non-performing loan write-offs, with COVID crisis, of course. Not to mention, we've had a few other challenges. Those challenges exist. But in a world in the coming year, when availability of capital for banks is likely to be deeply constrained because of both the tail end of the non-performing loan challenge, but more importantly, COVID profitability challenges, which is going to affect the balance sheet of banks. We're going to see a lot of business challenges in the next 12 months as a result of the recession that we're experiencing now and will experience in future. That will challenge banks. This will mean that alternative sources of capital raising become more important. This will be the beginning of the delivery of the Reserve Bank of India's long-held dream to grow a corporate bond market in India. And we believe a big chunk of that will be green and social and sustainable and the other variations around it. So that's what we've got. In the global market now, which is about $1 trillion, only about 3% is waste related. Now, in terms of the relative capital expenditure required in waste versus other sectors, that may not be out of kilter globally. But in India, it's zero, nada, none. That is not good. Of course, on the other flip side of the equation, that means, hey, we have a chance here. So I can tell you that if Indian entities are able to go overseas, they will get substantial increased investor appetite if they can label a bond green and if they can do hard currency, which may be very challenging, I appreciate, for waste companies, but if they can do hard currency, they will get lower rates. The German green bond that was issued last month made that explicitly clear, where they got a lower rate for the green version compared to the ordinary version on the day of issuance. However, we are also seeing strong appetite for highly rated INR issuance in overseas market. This may not be relevant to an ordinary corporate, but it will be relevant for municipalities and for states and for state-owned enterprises. Now, it might mean if you've got a contract with the municipality can raise the funds to finance the contract in a way they've never been able to before. And we've seen a few indications of this around. In terms of the corporate market, overseas INR issuance is very uncertain at this stage. But domestic appetite is increasing for this. And we've had a lot of companies like trust companies say that they have strong appetite amongst individual investors in India for green that's just untapped. They're looking for a product that can be issued. So that's the background. We would like to see this waste 3% grow. We'd definitely like to see it grow very fast in India, where the capex requirements are much larger. In terms of next steps, clearly coming out of the COVID the COVID period, there's going to be a major stimulus emphasis by all governments in the world. In Europe, we see this already, where the stimulus is built around building back better, which is the current mantra, green recovery. Where are jobs going to be created in areas which will also address our public policy imperative? Clearly, there's environmental restoration, afforestation. There is energy efficiency investments in buildings. You create jobs in the construction industry. And Europe's got a whole raft of incentives that are coming through in this area. In India, in the context of climate change, water infrastructure is a really critical area. The Ganga and other areas where we can capture water to manage the potential failure of the monsoon. We've got to get our act together about that. But to clean up our water streams too, which we all need, which of course takes us into the waste area. We have massive waste challenges. The sustainable manage that waste becomes opportunity. Can we link that to a jobs agenda? You guys will need to respond to this because the government's going to be looking for things that will create jobs, but we certainly need cleaner, greener lifestyle. And then, of course, we have the resilience agenda. The pandemic is a climate crisis, is an environmental crisis. It came about from pathogens jumping between species as a result of degraded environments in southern China. It's very clear. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has been predicting this for the last 30 years. And they've been saying we are going to see a century of pandemics in the 21st century. It's going to happen again, folks, and because of the climate impacts that we're experiencing. So we've got to prepare. So coming out of this crisis, and hey, it's not over yet. We've got a lot of brutal experiences to have before this is over. But coming out of this crisis, we have to build and rebuild in a way that ensures that we're better prepared next time. That doesn't just mean the climate agenda is physical infrastructure, like Bangladesh has to do with coastal protection. The floods last month were horrendous in Bangladesh. It also is health system infrastructure. We need a health system that can deal with future pandemics much better than we've been able to deal with. Social measures and so on, and of course, biodiversity and ecosystem repair will reduce the chances of pathogens jumping between species. So that's going to have to be part of the agenda. Waste has got to be a big part of both the ecosystem resilience, the urban resilience, and generally creating a cleaner and greener society, which is less likely to have problems in a future crisis. We think, by the way, just as a side point, there's a big opportunity for sovereign bonds here. India is going to have to issue a lot of sovereign bonds. it will issue a lot of sovereign bonds. It's time to go international as well as go domestic. Let's do that with INR green. We now have very clear messages, and I've had investors say this on previous Indian panels, where they're saying they will invest immediately in INR sovereign green bonds. The appetite is there. It's just a matter of tapping a different market and looking for the benefits of that, which is increased investor reach and potentially strong rate benefit. So we're hoping, we think it's going to be necessary, I'm sad to have to say, necessary for the Indian government to do this. But the appetite is there, the money will be there, and let's link it to the kind of green future that all Indians want. Clean, green, resilient, prepared for the next COVID, and so on. So that's the opportunity. The appetite's there. We now need your issuance. Shailendra, back to you.
Thank you, Sean, for that excellent what's the burning case for capital and in the context of putting it in context of COVID, etc. And then also, just a point there that you also need that capital to transition to a circular economy, because if the kind of growth that's going to come, where are the resources to support that growth? And so you do need capital, and that's clearly helping. And thank you so much for that. Sean, please stay with us through the hour, and we'll keep coming back to you with questions. It's my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Masood Malik. Mr. Masood Malik is the Joint Managing Director of Ramki Enviro and is responsible for operations and business development of the company globally. Mr. Malik has been working very closely with the industries and investors for close to 25 years to manage resource sustainability risks across the business life cycle. He's also recognized as a subject matter expert in management of hazardous materials, waste management, and rehabilitation of contaminated sites. Prior to joining Ramki, Mr. Malik was the Managing Director for ERM and a member of the ERM's Global Senior Leadership Team. Mr. Malik has also been involved in advising the Government of India, including the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Central Pollution Control Board, the Planning Commission, which is now known as Niti Aayog, on policy, legislation, and technical aspects, including regulatory frameworks, standards, and the SDGs. Thank you so much, Mr. Malik, to be here with us. Let me pass the floor to you for your keynote address.
Thanks a lot, Shailendra, and thank you, Sean, for teeing up the subject so eloquently. You're a hard act to follow, but let me start off by mentioning that Shailendra actually spoke very kindly about a lot of apparent achievements and distinctions. To be honest, the only one that I truly have by way of any distinction is that I've probably lost more money in the environmental and waste management field, and probably made more mistakes in the environmental and the waste management field than anybody else. So it is that experience and that context I would want to share with all of you today. Neeraj, thank you for putting us together. I think it's a great gathering. And I think on behalf of the National Council for Environment and Climate Change at ASSOCHAM, a very warm welcome to all the participants from my side as well. I do have a few slides. I will try to rush through them, but do let me know if you can see them.
Yes, yeah, we can see it, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So what I'll talk about is some learnings that I've come across when talking about this journey towards a circular economy. Now, obviously, there is a context to this, and the context is that I currently work with, and I feel very privileged to work with, probably the only unicorn that India has in the waste management space, and it became a unicorn last year because KKR invested in the waste management space and in the circular economy space. This was the largest investment India has attracted in this particular space. Now, on this journey and as an environmental professional and a student over the last 25 years, I've come across some interesting perspectives on the environmental business, specifically on the waste management side, the circular economy related opportunities, and what does it mean from an access to capital standpoint. And we heard from Sean about specifically on the green bonds opportunity and how that can become a real catalyst for transformative growth in this particular field. And that potential has been there for many years, and it's definitely becoming more mainstream as we look towards the future. I'll probably bring in the private equity side, the venture capital side of that, more private equity than venture capital from an access to capital standpoint. So, like I said, I work with this organization called Ramki. Ramki is a company that used to call itself a waste management company. Until it called itself a waste management company, it grew organically. And the moment it started its journey towards a fully integrated circular economy player, suddenly the global investors started becoming interested. 25 years ago, it started in India. Now it's present all over the country and now increasingly across the world, and in all aspects of the resource value chain. It is this transformation from an agency that used to handle and dispose wastes, that's what its roots were, to a company and a corporation and a business that focuses on the entire resource value. That is what I think created the growth opportunity on one hand, also attracted growth capital on the other hand, and along that journey there were some learnings, and here they are in a nutshell. The first one, and again, I'm trying to answer an unasked question here. And the unasked question is, how do businesses in the waste management, circular economy, resource recovery space attract capital? And these are some of the learnings that we have had. And the first one is, you have to start with a big idea. It is the impact potential that attracts capital. And like Sean talked about green bonds, there is green capital. And with each of the funds today, increasingly, they have a special funds which are called impact funds, where money is put aside to invest in businesses that are aligned to one or more of the SDGs or other sort of sustainability themes. The impact potential. If an idea has an impact potential, environmental as well as social, it will attract capital. But impact requires scale. And therefore, your idea has to have the ability to scale. A lot of great ideas have remained unfunded because they were transformative, but they remained pilot scale. And the scalability aspect, the multiplier potential of that idea was not highlighted enough. The second learning that I've had, and this is very, very, it's my personal experience as well, that true innovation is really tough and it's actually really rare as well. And therefore, I think for an entrepreneur in this space, differentiation as opposed to innovation, probably, and the ability to spot and go after a gap in the market is probably the ability to attract capital faster. So I think instead of trying to develop technology de novo, find a solution right from the scratch, I think being a fast follower is what my advice would be to entrepreneurs. And the reason why I say that is the innovation journey is extremely long. And if there's one thing that we have learned is that a lot of times, brilliant innovation, by the time it matures, we realize that its time is gone, its time is past. And therefore, being a fast follower can really improve the bankability of your idea and your sort of speed to market. And the final sort of thought in this particular chain is, instead of focusing on the technology, my suggestion would be, please focus on the solution. Again, it's linked to the environmental and social impact or the growth potential that the solution presents. Link it to that as opposed to technology. My experience has been, and our experience as an organization, that technology has a limited shelf life. And with the kind of advances that we are seeing today, technology evangelists who have found one technology and have projected that to be the be-all, end-all of everything when it comes to waste management or resource recovery, etc., they have rarely succeeded. So I think our solutions need to be nimble, agile, customized, not dependent upon one silver bullet, and therefore not too invested in one particular technology. And finally, execution. I think this is really where, so whilst I have seen big ideas, ideas that responded to a gap in the market and ideas that truly had a great solution potential, I've seen them where I have seen most of us falter, myself included in the past, is on the execution front. I think in the waste management space, among the investment community, there is a credibility delta that we as environmental professionals have to help bridge. And the credibility delta comes with historical claims that we ourselves are guilty of, saying waste is wealth, it pays for itself. After 25 years, let me just share this perception with you. I believe it, like I said, after losing a lot of money and making lots of mistakes. Waste actually doesn't pay for itself. And therefore, whatever idea we bring to the table, there has to be a linkage back to the generator. The polluter, the generator, has to pay at least some amount to make the waste management solution viable. I have not come across a truly scalable, sustainable solution where waste completely pays for itself. The assumption that scale alone will drive viability, it's true sometimes, but not all of the times. And especially an entrepreneur or an innovator who's very passionate about a technology, very passionate about his innovation or his or her solution, always would say, okay, you know what? This will make a lot of commercial sense at scale. I think that it has to make commercial sense at every scale. And I think that is really where we have not delivered on the promises that we have made to our investors in the past. We were not able to scale and through that scale deliver the viability that we promised. And the last, and I think this is something that I'm sure all of you will agree, that everything, and especially in the economies and the societies we operate in, emerging economies, developing economies, are the markets that, at least the markets that Ramki operates in. I define that market as, on both sides of the equator, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, where probably most of the world's poverty and population and environmental challenges reside. That is really our core market. Everything takes longer there, and everything costs more than what you originally planned for. So therefore, have that cushion in your execution plan. It is these learnings and these experiences that actually allowed us to embark on this journey. Like I said, the Ramki journey started 25 years ago. And along the way, we realized that waste management is not just getting rid of waste. The differentiation that I was talking about is when from waste management, we started looking at resource management. And from resource management, we started looking at truly, elements or strands of the circular economy. And whilst to all of us, I'm sure it's very, very obvious, but I wanted to make this point that circular economy is not just recycling plastics. It's often thought of as okay, you know what, plastics is the big thing. There are many opportunities in it. And yes, there is a lot of need and a lot of investment required in the plastic space and in the recycling space in general and the plastic space in particular. I think for entrepreneurs who are trying to scale in this particular space, please look beyond what is the obvious, beyond what is really the news of the day, and along each aspect of the circular economy value chains. There are many loops here. And I wanted to close this little keynote with some examples of where Ramki has found a niche. And this is just a slide. I hope it is visible to everyone. I think here Ramki looked at all the various strands of circularity associated with the traditional waste management business it had. The 4 R's, the repair, reuse, refurbish, recycle. And let me just take you through some examples here. From being the largest waste handler in the company to the largest waste to energy generator in the company. It is that journey that helped it attract capital. From being the largest, we were managing maybe 6.5 million tons of municipal waste. It's only when we started understanding that represents an opportunity to become the largest plastics recycler in India. And when we started finding ways of recovering a lot of the plastics that were making up that 6.5 million tons per annum of municipal waste. When we started going outside the country and started developing, fit for purpose solutions for that society, for that economy, for that need. For example, we inaugurated earlier this year, the Gulf's largest and first artificial intelligence enabled material recovery facility. That one facility, it may not be necessarily viable in India today, but that one facility helped us differentiate ourselves and attract growth capital. The first Marpol waste, marine waste treatment facility that we are building in Sahara port of Oman. It's essentially a recycling facility, but focuses entirely on marine waste. We learned that because we made an investment in North America and learned Marpol business from that acquisition that we made in North America. We today are the largest construction and demolition recyclers in India. We make sand and construction aggregate from debris. And with the recent sort of evolution in regulations around reverse sand mining and illegal quarrying, I just can't keep the product at all in my facilities. It just flies off. It's actually one of the fastest growing sectors that we have, just recycling construction debris and just making sand from it. And we are selling everything, every gram of that we are processing. And we are on a plan to develop 30 of these sites across India. About maybe 15 of them are already under various stages of development. We're the largest producer of alternate fuel in India. I can go on and on. One very exciting development is that we were always in the e-waste space, and we finally are developing the first absolutely end-to-end integrated precious metals refinery, where from e-waste, we're looking at actually purified gold, silver, palladium, copper, and the entire sort of resource, the precious metals value chain associated with e-waste. The next phase would be to go after recoverable metals across the industrial waste chain. I can go on and on. The point I'm trying to make is that it is this transition from being a waste manager to a resource manager to a circular economy player, and not just one solution, but learning from across the world and finding solutions and then scaling them up, that allowed this company, the company that I currently work with, attract growth capital. I hope some of this was useful for you. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Malik, for really showing what the path or transition from being just a waste management company to a resource management company. And it's wonderful to see how various aspects of the waste stream can be then put back into the loop and the resources continue to stay there. Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. I had one sort of, you could call it related, but a question. And in the interest of transparency and the way you speak forthrightly, let me try to address some of the white elephant in the room, right? I mean, and that white elephant being the very often that we talk in private thing about, the unsavory elements in this. And how do you manage that nexus, if I can use that word? I think your insights would be very useful for people who are listening in onto this.
I would ask you, Shailendra to bring out the white elephants, but happy to take that. Yeah. Actually, if you look at the evolution of this sector, and where this sector is in its journey.
Right.
A lot of times when people ask me how I would define Ramki today, I'll say so Ramki is a 25-year-old startup. Because whilst it is 25-year-old and it's a billion-dollar company, et cetera, it is also a startup. It is at the point of inflection. It is about its current growth rate. I cannot share numbers with you, but are through the roof. This is a very interesting time in our evolution, but we also have to understand the past of this sector.
Right.
There was a time where, if you look at the West, the people who used to run the waste management, especially the transportation business, the collection and transport business, they were mobsters, and that is really where the sort of the rough, tough waste management contractor look came up. However, let me just take you a little further back. And let me take you to the oil industry. And I'm telling you the same rough, tough, tattooed looks applied to the oil industry about 120 years ago. Let me take you further back to the coal industry. And I would argue that the entire resources industry, whether it is the front end of the resources, whether it's oil, mining, coal, or the back end of the industry, which is the waste and its disposal and its collection and its transport and its recycling, formal or informal, it has come from a similar background. What has allowed those sectors to transform was, one, scale, organization, access to capital, and therefore management systems, governance, norms, and compliance becoming what defines that sector. So from a time when the waste management sector was defined by which political sort of local leader will nominate which contractor to do this, today it is the environmental norms and very tough qualification criteria that is actually governing how projects are being awarded. Today, integrated projects are being offered. It is not just that, oh, you please provide a truck to transport waste. I have to provide technology for the grate on which I will transform the waste to heat and make power from it. That is very much a higher end sort of technical value add as opposed to a local transport contractor. It is this evolution that I'm very happy to be a part of. And I believe that investments like KKR's are actually furthering it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, and for sort of addressing the white elephant pretty forthrightly. Kindly stay with us as I move on to the panelists. We'll come back to you, Mr. Malik and Sean, time to time if there are some questions. But let me now quickly move on to introducing our panelists. I will do that one by one. And first, I'd like to invite Ms. Shobha Raghavan, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Sahara Zero Waste, strategizing overall operations to ensure growth with the scale-up of a niche industry. She's been associated with Sahara for the last 8 years. Ever since its inception, has been constantly evolving various business models as per market demand. An electrical engineer with over 17 years of experience, she's worked in the engineering and IT industry with a strong focus on business, engineering systems, and technology. She also connects actively with her community to build waste champions. She's been a speaker at forums organized by IIMB, EU, CAIF, CII, TERI, GIZ, IntelliCap, and several other institutions. It's my deep honor to call you, Shobhaji. Kindly present a quick overview of your organization, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Shailendra. Thanks for giving us this opportunity to discuss our contribution as a extra small industry compared to what Mr. Malik described, Ramki. We really have high regard for organizations like Ramki, and we're really watching their growth. Thanks, Mr. Sean, for setting the context of the green bonds. I will share my screen, Mr. Shailendra. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Just make it full screen. Yeah, that's it. Good to go.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So we are Sahara Zero Waste, an organization known for its circular economy. And our tagline is nature knows no waste. So what do? We are a social enterprise and providing holistic waste management services. And we work to bring about environmental and social impact on the principles of circular economy and the global commitment to SDGs. Quickly, we have three kinds of business verticals. One is our zero waste program, which is what we call as waste management within the campuses or tech park. We engage with the client in ensuring that their waste is recovered completely as a resource and diverted from landfill. We also help them in getting zero waste certifications once we have ensured that they have followed all the principles of waste management, including reduction. We also offer services around zero waste consultancies to ensure that the clients have the right infrastructure and SOPs for managing waste. And next is our extended producer responsibility for plastic and electronic waste. And that is something we offer pan-India. And finally, we have a vertical on recycled products where we close the loop with products made out of waste. The different streams of waste with which we work are paper, plastic, textile, and construction material. So as an organization, we are a social and environmental organization, and 50% of our impact is coming from the environmental KPI of converting waste as a resource, and 50% of our impact is coming through social impact, where we employ people from below the poverty line who have been rag pickers in this field and want to work in a formal space in a dignified environment as per the labor compliances. Yeah, so this has been our journey so far. In the year 2000, India had its first municipal solid waste rules. In 2001, Sahas was established as an NGO. In 2013, we established the Sahas Zero Waste, which is a social enterprise and registered as a private limited. In 2015, we got some angel funding. In 2019, we got some seed funding. And as of 2025, our vision is to become a 500 ton per day company. We have really started small, and we definitely look to grow to this. Today, we are at 50 to 60 tons in the year of the COVID. I'm having a challenge changing the slide. Yeah. So I would like to bring out some key points of how we are managing our business today in the space of material recovery. So there are six, we call it a 6S approach to sustainable business for material recovery. So the 6 S's are segregation at source, supply chain, scale of operations, service fees, sorting efficiencies, and social inclusion. So in the space of segregation at source, I think IEC is a very important component that we need to integrate into our system. Similarly, we expect that the government has to be very much more stringent in enforcing the law. Coming to supply chain, it will be viable. Our business is going to be viable only if we have a product mix of all waste streams. Similarly, we would require waste coming from different sources, whether it is a ULB, whether it is a corporate, whether it's a residential community, institution, or it can be a scrap market or informal sector. We would require waste to come from different sources in order to make this combination work. Similarly, we'll have to establish a good logistic system because waste is being moved and it is not a packed item, any other packed item that is getting warehoused item that is getting moved, and it is important to strengthen this end-to-end logistic system. Finally, we need to have the right recyclers ecosystem in place in order that the waste that we are as segregated waste and is reaching the right formal destinations for recycling. Now, we have to close the loop by also connecting the manufacturers because we need to see how the recycled material is reaching the secondary market and is going back to the manufacturers to be used again as part of their raw material in a mix with their virgin material. So that is these are some of the factors that will strengthen the supply chain. The third S is on scale of operations. Now, we as an organization do believe in a decentralized mode of waste management. The problem is we're breaking the problem smaller chunks and trying to solve the problem at a scale of 20 to 25 tons per day. And to also reach the right scale of operations, we need to have a constant material flow. So whatever I had discussed on the supply chain, having a good product mix from different sources is what is going to help this sustain. The third is on the service fees. It's important that the bulk consumers are paying for the waste that they are generating. And sometimes we are also very much dependent on the EPR funds for different streams of plastic and electronic waste to make this entire thing sustainable. Moving on to the fifth S of sorting efficiencies. Right now, it's going to be very, very difficult if manual sorting mechanisms are going to be used. We need to bring in different technologies for sorting. Even though the decentralized size is small, we are looking at bringing in AI and machine learning to ensure that the sorting efficiencies are higher, and hence we will be able to reduce our costs. And final S is social inclusion. The entire waste system is entangled with the informal sector. So we need to see how to integrate them into the system and also see how to formalize them into the system. So this is our 6S approach to sustainable business in material recovery. Moving on to the next slide. So these are some of the recycled products. We are already working in the circular economy. So we have who recycle Tetra Pak, and we extract the paper and make a lot of stationery products. Similarly, we extract the plastic and aluminum from the Tetra Pak and make roofing sheets and different plywoods that can be used for internal furniture. These are products that are made out of pre-consumer textiles, and these are products made out of PET plastic coming out of PET bottles. Now, coming on to our geographic presence, we are in 17 locations in the country and are definitely looking to expand. Waste management is a very good opportunity, as told by the earlier speakers, and this is something that we would like to be part of in the near future. And finally, coming on to the final concluding slide, where I would like to make a concluding statement that, oh, 1 second, I'm just having a problem with my slides. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, this is the size of our organization. We are a 250 employee organization, a mix of a leadership team and a ground team. These are some of our installations of material recovery facilities, biogas plants, and EPR recoveries. And today I would like to have a concluding statement based on what other speakers have also mentioned, that waste management today is being viewed as a regulatory compliance, but failing to consider this as a potential to integrate into the broader sustainability frameworks of circular economy, sustainable development goals, such sustainable procurement, and CSR initiatives. So off to you, Mr. Shailendra.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Shobha. One quick follow-up question. I was reading on your strategy of the growth path to 2025. You mentioned that, one of the pillars of your strategy is that you want to make sure that decentralized waste management works. So my question to you is, what do you mean by that, and how would you scale that up, given, what we just heard about scaling across Pan India and getting some volumes on that? If you could answer that quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So as an organization, we would really like to focus on getting segregated waste and channelizing this for sorting, because there are quite a bit of recyclers across the country who have already set up big infrastructure. So we would like to focus on good material handling and sorting technologies that can be installed through our value chain, and thus reduce costs and optimize operations. Now, this is number one. And the number two is that we are also very keen to see how the ecosystem is going to develop on different difficult streams of waste, like mattress, wood, ceramics, glass, coming from households and coming from different renovation sites, which currently we feel are very voluminous and bulky and not having a good ecosystem. So we are definitely would like to see how this is going to develop, so that we will be able to give holistic and complete solutions to the kind of clients that we are working with.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Shobhaji. And we'll come back to you during the discussion stage, so please stay on. It's my pleasure now to introduce Ms. Benisha Payatati. She's an environmental scientist since 1996. She has executed more than 150 projects related to waste management, hazardous waste, which includes hazardous waste, biomedical waste, e-waste, and domestic solid waste. She's also been part of environmental impact assessment, due diligence studies, watershed management, social assessments, effluent treatment, air pollution mitigation, so on and so forth. She has worked on projects of World Bank, UNDP, NORAD, GTZ, Waste Netherlands, Danida, USAID, UNEP, UNIDO, SIDA, and many other international organizations. She has undertaken study visits to more than 35 countries in Europe, Australia, Asia, and Africa. She has a master's degree in environmental science from the University of Pune and an MBA, Commonwealth, as well as a Commonwealth Executive MBA. She is currently pursuing PhD in environmental law from National Law School of India, University of Bangalore. She has a ISO 14000 lead auditor certificate on EMS audit. Welcome, Ms. Benisha, and we look forward to your quick introduction slides, and over to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Shailendra. Now, can I just share my slides?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Right. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Okay. So we heard the two other speakers earlier. Both of them were entrepreneurs. Our organization is slightly different. We try and create entrepreneurs because that is what our organization stands for. One of the activities. So International Institute of Waste Management is the organization that I work for. Earlier, I've been in this field for the past 24 years. So through and through in waste management. And so I've seen the evolution of waste management in our country. Currently, I'm also the member of Technology Development Board, which has given me a lot of opportunities dealing with investors and also with entrepreneurs, with startups, and how to finance such institutions. Now, talking about our organization, our tagline is a resource management think tank because we are an NGO, but working with the government. Yeah. The outline is, I would talk about who we are, what we do, and whom we work with, because that's also very important. And some of the flagship projects, I will not go into all the projects, but whichever projects have some link with circular economy, those are the ones which I would highlight. The International Institute of Waste Management was started in 2009 as a program of the Department of Science and Technology. And it was housed in Bhopal and supported by the MPCST. So now you know why I call myself as, our organization is working with the government because we were started by the government. And the successful program then evolved into a full-fledged non-profit organization in 2012. And it is registered as a trust. Now, IWM works towards bridging the gap between government programs, schemes, legislations, and implementing agencies through the following support. That is, we work in almost all the waste management field. I think we are the only organization in the country which is working on not an entrepreneur, but the NGO which is exclusively working on waste management. We work on biomedical waste, e-waste, hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, agriculture waste, horticultural waste. We work on sanitation. We also work on the climate change aspects of waste management in the policy and regulatory framework, which is one of our forte. And we also have another vertical, which is entrepreneurship development. Our, why we call ourselves as think tank is because we do a lot of technology evaluation for various governmental organizations and also for the investors. We have a strong capacity building activity where we are empaneled by the government to also train all the pollution control board officials across the country. We also work very closely with the government in policy formulation, policy support in all ways. And we also help the corporates in their policy management and policy formulation in waste management. Our services, we have certain niche services which we offer, which is implementation and field studies which we conduct for corporates, for governments, organizations, and also for various development organizations. So we undertake CSR projects, we undertake inventorization studies, we do DPR preparations, technology evaluations, programs and schemes evaluation for the government. We in the social relevant projects we take up on gender issues, SHG support, all this which is connected to waste management. Then poverty alleviation programs, entrepreneurship development. For capacity development training, as I've already mentioned to you, we also have some innovative programs which I will mention in when I talk about the flagship projects. We work with certain government organizations like CSIR, BARC, where we are the support to these organizations to bring the lab scale innovations into the field. And we also provide the feedback or the requirement to undertake research. So that's the kind of a bridging the gap which we undertake. And we also create some new systems and technologies which we pilot. And also we do a lot of collaborative research. We have our presence pan-India. Actually, we work with almost all the state governments, especially the Pollution Control Board organizations across the country. We have our offices which are positioned in all the different directions of the country. In fact, the head office is in Bangalore. We started off, that's a registered office is in Bhopal. We have offices in Jaipur, New Delhi, Shillong, which we take care of the entire northeastern areas. Now we are also going to have a presence in Mumbai, in IIT Mumbai. So our international presence is like through the international organizations with whom we work. We are empaneled with UNDP. We are working very closely with GIZ because even I was also part of the GIZ for 15 years and then moved on to this organization. We work in the Latin American countries through LACFI. This is a kind of a working relationship which we have developed. It is just starting. And IWM is also engaged in several pan-India programs, specifically with states where we exclusively work with these state governments for all policy related to waste management. These are all our clients. These are all the corporate clients, which you can see. I'm not going into detail, but we have almost all the big names in it. We also have certain government organizations through whom we are empaneled with these government organizations, which is listed here. I would go into details, especially of the Ministry of Human Resources and also with the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, where we have a very long association and we are key resource center for these organizations, these ministries. Now coming to our flagship projects, where I would spend a little more time. The projects which are with relevant circular economy, we did a major project with the stadiums because these are again niche areas where not many organizations or hardly any organization work with. But these are the areas which give a lot of, which can actually translate to pan-India change of behavior in waste management. And that is the reason we have targeted such organizations. So these are innovative systems which we have developed. One is called the Green Wicket Project, where we work with the German government through the GIZ and also with the European Union. And this is exclusively on resource efficiency for stadiums. So we have, this is two different activities. One is to create the stadiums into a green stadium, where almost all activities which are done in the stadium has a circular, which is having a resource efficiency with a circular economy aspect in it. So we made the first green stadium, which is the Chinnaswamy Stadium in the world. That's a first cricket stadium. We also worked with the IPL matches, where we had introduced certain circular economy concepts and resource efficiency concepts during the matches, because that's where maximum non-biodegradable materials are come out in such short span of time. And this is where maximum people also, all kinds of people with all strata of the society are present. And so in one go, you can actually reach to the maximum population. And this was quite a successful project where we have been able to recover in just one match series of IPL for Chinnaswamy Stadium about 25 lakhs in just one type of waste material. The second project was on the Green Campus project, which is again a major project which we are doing for 10,000 plus institutions across the country, where we are working with AICTE, where we have developed guidelines on waste management for the country, where the evaluation of the campuses are based on these guidelines. And we are the only certifying agencies for the campuses on waste management. And there are certain like gold and platinum and other ratings which are given. And this finally for the NAC and other accreditations for the campuses, this is very important. But then from the point of view of environment and introduction of the waste management concepts in right from the college level, where like an engineering college, the students will learn how to do these kind of projects right there in the campus, and entrepreneurship development will happen through this. Next one is about the establishment of the first value park. This was with Toyota, the country's first value park, where all the recycling concepts have been shown, live model. It's an experiential learning concept where right from students to the regulators to entrepreneurs to even corporates, they can come and experience and learn the concepts, where all the recycling concepts have circular economy embedded in it. And then we have the formalization of informal e-waste recyclers on both plastics and in textile industry. I think this, I would give examples when we are doing the discussion.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Ms. Benisha, that we have a section where we can
examples of
thank you
during the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Projects like Swachh Bharat Mission evaluation for Karnataka, WAVE, which is again for women entrepreneurs, 3,500 women students across the country. We have them as entrepreneurship development. Then on COVID waste management, we have been doing for 8 states in the country. We've trained almost all the doctors in COVID waste management. Sanitation improvement for 4 rural clusters in Madhya Pradesh. These are the other projects. I think
fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much for that. You've done brilliant work. I think you also focus on building resources and skill sets, which is so essential for a growing sector. Thank you. And in the interest of time, I'll just move ahead. And we'll come back to you, Ms. Benisha, with all the wonderful examples you have around entrepreneurship development. My pleasure to introduce Sandeep Patel, co-founder and chief executive officer of NEPRA. He spent 10 years and has built a suitable model in waste management for the Indian context. NEPRA is a technology-driven, city-based waste management business model, integrating all the stakeholders of the waste management system, bringing in transparency, structure, traceability, and playing a significant role in take-back programs under EPR. He has been a speaker at IIMs and various international policy forums, eco-innovation systems at Berlin, Germany, and many other such forums. He was featured in the Green Hero Film Festival organized by the US Consulate and TERI for revolutionizing dry waste collection and management in Ahmedabad. The company is recognized winner of a 3R Excellence Award for waste recycling at the 8th Regional 3R Forum in Asia and the Pacific Mission Zero Waste. So welcome, Sandeep. Over to you, and enlighten us with your story.
So I will try to be very quick on the presentation because I think we are running back on time. So a lot of us know this journey has been almost a decade now of NECRA. We have been building on blocks. But as a business, we are purely focused on dry waste, and that also on recycling or ensuring there is zero waste to landfill. And we have tried to create value chain from the unorganized to organized, bringing in all the stakeholders into the value chain and ensuring that there is efficiency in the process management of creating circularity. We create infrastructure, which is quite important for cities when they start doing segregation of waste at scale. So we are a 650 plus team members today, which might cross about 1,000 in the next 6 months. And we have capacity of 560 tons of processing per day, which will be in next year almost 1,000 plus. And we aspire to be in 25 cities by 2025. What we do, we create a circularity in the sense of segregating the waste material into a level where it becomes an input for a recycler, or we recycle it ourselves. We have strategic partnerships and alliances with a lot of recyclers who create certain products as per our need and requirement. So we work across the value chain. We are actively focusing on cloth and plastics, and also working on paper. We intend to focus on creating positive impact on the environment with shifting to electric vehicles, creating more infrastructure, using more renewable energy, and also ensuring that our footprint of sending RDF or any kind of waste to various long distance cement plants is diverted towards waste to energy going forward. So I think, Shailesh, that's what from my end. I think we can continue with the rest of it.
So thanks, Sandeep. That was really quick and to the point. Thank you for giving me some time back. Really appreciate that. One quick question to you, Sandeep. We've all seen your development as a company. You got into this space, I think, about 10 years ago. My question to you was, what motivated you to get into this space 10 years ago, and what are your motivators now as you look out into the future, let's say 5-10 years?
So, I think what Masoodji mentioned about, that there is aspiration and inspiration to make mistakes and keep getting up and improving every day. So there are some people like him and me. So he has maybe 25 years, I have 10-15 years. So he started with that aspiration of making mistakes and trying to learn from it. Maybe his expenses or his losses are much more higher than mine. But yes, I do align with his thought process of saying that the journey has given us a lot of learning, but it has also cost us a lot. Definitely, the times have changed now. So the new entrepreneurs who are coming in, they have better environment, better policy. So for us, it was just about the inner inspiration to do something different from what everybody else was doing, and trying to figure out something which looked like more of a challenge and unsolvable at that time.
Understand. Thank you for that. I'd request all the panelists to put on their videos, and let's get into a sort of the discussion format. We'll try to limit this to about 15-20 minutes. And if I ask some some sensitive questions, you can, my apologies in the beginning. Okay, so let me start what I call, the first 3-4 minutes of this discussion as the official cribbing section, where you can go hammer and tongs on the government and regulations and what's needed and what's to make this space better. So let me start by asking you, Ms. Benisha, you've been with the government and working in that space. So can you very quickly draw to us what's the state of affairs of waste management in India from, let's say, a regulatory standpoint, if you were to compare it 5 years ago to what it will be today and then what it's likely to be? We are also a country with huge number of dump sites. These are not landfills, they are beyond landfill now. They are mountains of their own. And so what's happening on that front, and how's that going to be addressed? And then, of course, the role of the informal sector, the silent environmentalist that I call. In that context, how have things changed? So this is a question for all the panelists. Ms. Benisha, you can go first, and then anyone wants to jump in and comment, that'll be great, including you, Sean.
Right. Yeah. Now, the questions which you've asked actually are all kind of linked also.
Yes.
So I would take up the last question first.
Right.
If I have the liberty to change the order,
Please.
because I've been working with the informal sector for the past all the 24 years. And what I feel is, especially in India, when we talk about recycling, we have to talk about informal recyclers, because we have been doing the service of recycling in our country. And but they are the heroes who have not been acknowledged, and most often they are the ones who have been blamed, especially by the entrepreneurs, because they say that they do the cherry picking, and then when it comes to us, we don't get anything. And that's why all our the financial models fail. But then when you actually look at the waste management as a whole of the country, then I would give due credit to the informal sector. Now, we have done certain exercise where we formalized these informal sectors and brought them into the entrepreneurship. And
right, that's part.
What is the kind of regulatory framework?
Yeah.
In fact, I think we have the best regulation in our country and in the world in waste management. However, the implementation is the lax. And
right.
There are several things to it. I won't go into details on that.
Sure. Maybe
question, I don't know. What was the second question?
No, so I was what's the state of regulation? You said they are pretty good. My question, the other one was, how do you handle dump sites? You know, the Ghazipur, Devnar, and so what's going on there? That's equally part of the waste structure, right?
In fact, Ghazipur, I am in the evaluation board of the Principal Secretary to Prime Minister. In fact, we have working out systems where this Ghazipur dump site can become a completely new place which will be available for the real estate agents to actually take it up, because there are technologies and there are also experiments which are going on. We are evaluating it. In fact, it has already started. I would
wonderful
place it at that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now that we have heard, if I can, apologize to you, Ms. Benisha, in advance, a representative of the government talk, my question, same question to the businessmen on the panelists. So what's your feeling on, the state of regulations? Have they improved over the years? What do you see coming in the future? What kind of things that you think the government should be doing? So anyone on the panelists can answer.
Maybe Sandeep would like to start. I think I'd like to hear more from him.
I was asking that Masoodji start.
Oh, suddenly there's a lot of silence. Sorry. Okay, I get the message. Let's move on. And I'm very happy to see that. I'm very happy to see that business doesn't expect anything from the government or from the regulators. So it's all hunky dory.
No, so I will just add it, Shailendra, so in case it should not be left unanswered. So
yeah.
I would say, definitely, I think business needs to do its core job of solving a problem.
Right.
And definitely we will have a lot of challenges, and we have been challenges all these years. So yes, adapting to the changes and making representations on the challenges that the sector has. And I think what Masoodji faced, or what I have been facing, or what Shobna and the team has been facing, the outcomes today, which is visible on 2016-18 rules, or the kind of momentum which has happened because of Swachh Bharat, is moving India towards a better infrastructure towards waste management. So I think the context of focusing on climate bond is the right time, because the policy is getting aligned, entrepreneurs are there, and there should be infrastructure funding also available to scale this up.
Yeah. Understand. No, that's good. And the reason I asked that question is that on many platforms one hears this, but India is also a case where you have, 4,000 crore PET recycling industry that was established 3 decades ago, when arguably the waste management wasn't at its peak or best or things. So there is something to be said for the entrepreneur and entrepreneurial spirit in the country. So thanks. And quickly moving on to, I think the subject of the day in terms of, how do we create circular economy business models? My question to you, Sandeep, and you showed how in your presentation, how you're addressing this. Mr. Malik's presentation also talked about that. Very often we hear that, plastics is really the most valuable piece of that dry waste stream. And for the moment, we'll limit our conversation to the dry waste part of it. What's your view on that? Is that true? Because waste has many streams, right?
So, plastic by value terms definitely would consist of about 70-75% of the top line. But definitely by composition, it is always about 50% or less.
Yeah.
What is important to see is, the value chain or creation of value chain infrastructure around plastics and paper or any other commodity. Scale of those recyclers are different, right? So the market and the value chain existence of plastic is quite fragmented, and hence it was only mainly focused on PET earlier. Now it is also getting on HDPE, PP, and all other polymers. Whereas on paper, you have large-scale paper mills, you have large-scale metal recyclers, and all. And those infrastructure have been existent for quite some time. So I think plastic in dry waste space is an important product for revenue generation as well as markets, just because of the kind of value it derives and the gross margin to provide.
Right. And so if you were to compare it with, let's say, metals or construction and debris or, even, let's say, paper, are you saying that revenue stream isn't or not amenable for circular economy business models, or is the ecosystem well established in those cases? Certainly not in the case of construction debris.
No, all those waste streams have value and they are very interesting, right? So it's all about creating the market and ensuring that you are able to satisfy the quality needs. Because, for example, I'll just give you a small example on textile recycling and textile waste. We have been working on almost 6 months now on textile recycling. We have done a lot of trials and testing. What happens is when you start working with unorganized sector, is you will get a lot of resistance to open up and discuss with you openly. So they will not really collaborate with you. So you'll have to break a lot of barriers to really start working with them to derive the right value of the recycling and create that value chain. And I think gradually, once they start understanding and the whole ecosystem starts creating, then the business really starts building up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. One question to you, sir, Mr. Malik. One of the things that we don't talk about as frequently as I see in India is, automobile scrap or automobile waste. And we know that there's big policies being driven towards scrappage of automobiles, etc. How do you see that space emerging, and where does it dovetail with your current operations? So you're on mute, Mr. Malik.
Thanks, Karanduji. I'll try and respond to your previous question as well on the regulations and policy very, very quickly.
Yes.
I'm not a shy person, so I think my views on that at the federal level, our policies and our regulations are world class. I think if you look at any of our laws, the standards that have been prescribed meet best available standards anywhere in the world. There is no arbitrage between race to the bottom, that in India the waste management standards or regulations are any inferior. Cannot be said about implementation and enforcement on the ground. And therefore, I'll give you an example.
Right.
I probably operate in 25 cities in the country on municipal waste. And these are some of the mega cities. Where I'm handling, on a day, more than 5,000, 6,000, in one case, 7,000 tons a day from one city. And also then I'm also doing, a Bilaspur, a 200, 150 tons per day city. But I have, for each of the 25 cities, 25 very different concession agreements with very different terms, conditions, compliance norms, standards. So there is, it's like I'm in the European Union, that I'm subject to 25 different sets of laws as opposed to one country when it comes to municipal waste. On all other waste forms, there is much better sanitization, hazardous waste, biomedical waste, etc. Other point I would like to make from a policy standpoint, and this is forward looking, I think there is a convergence happening that I do not know whether everyone in this forum really appreciates or is visible to them. By convergence, I mean the boundaries between what is municipal and what is biomedical. The COVID case was classic. What is biomedical and what is hazardous? What is domestic and what is hazardous? All those waste streams are actually becoming more complex. Now, regulations need to recognize that every residence also generates biomedical waste. Every residence also generates hazardous waste, whether it is batteries or CFL or sanitary waste or etc. It is so. This convergence needs to be recognized by policy, and a standardization around that would be extremely useful. And we are obviously working together with forums such as ASSOCHAM and others, and with certain government bodies to help with this. Now, on the second question that you asked on end-of-life vehicles, we have been watching this space extremely carefully, and like I said, we are a fast follower. The first off the block were the Mahindras with a facility in Delhi. And for me, the real test is what is the throughput that facility is getting today. The gap between intent, policy, and implementation is extremely important for an entrepreneur in this space. The day the ELV facility, the Mahindra's ELV facility, will start getting significant traffic, which today it is not getting. Till the time it competes with the Mayapuris and the chop shops, in Delhi, it is not going to be viable. But with policy, with NGT, there would be a tomorrow, and hopefully a very, very proximate tomorrow, where enforcement will drive throughput into one such facilities. And I can promise you, we will be all over the map because we have the technologies, we have got the equipment, we've got the catchments worked out, the locations worked out for us to go from 0 ELV facilities to 11 ELV facilities, which is our current plan, will be a matter of months. We are waiting for this to become a priority for our enforcement agencies.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that. And just, sort of a quick follow-up, Mr. Malik. You did talk about, for successful circular economy business models to be very careful about the impact that's being created. And then when you look at it in terms of the waste management and its sort of fragmented structure, one critique that we often hear is the lack of data, right? And whether the data is consistent, has it been audited? Because we've got various figures from, let's say, the Central Pollution Control Board that claims India has 60% recycling rates, which is higher than anywhere else in the world. So how do we reconcile this, or how important is this lack of data to better account for, the impact that's actually being created?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and that is further complicated or augmented by the fact that they're a very diverse country, where the urban typologies themselves are extremely diverse. Catchments are very diverse in terms of the kind of waste they generate. I cannot take, if I design my WT plant in Deva on the basis of my WT performance in Hyderabad, I will fail ab initio. I will fail right in the beginning. Therefore, data for me or for our organization has been a serious challenge. Now, if you look at Central Pollution Control Board themselves, they collect data from every single continuous emission monitoring system in the country today.
Right.
There is literally every one of our facilities has a SEMS unit. These are very complex, high-end continuous emission monitoring systems, live streaming this data to the Central Pollution Control Board. However, there is no analytics engine at that end, which is really making sense of it. So what we have is a lake, which has potentially amazing transformative value for our sector and for our ecosystem. But there is no analytics being done. So there is no lack of data, Shailendra-ji. There is lack of analytics and robust analytics that makes the data actionable. Therefore, we now have a data center of our own.
Wow.
I said, from all public sources as well as our own sources, we are looking at all data at our command and control centers because we want to make sense out of it. We want it to become inform future decisions, especially on recycling and resource recovery. I would argue that data is extremely critical and the difference between viability and non-viability. That said, please, this is one sector where extrapolation has led to massive mistakes in the past. We must take cognizance of the diversity of each catchment, and therefore there are limits to relevance of data as well. And that's how I would look at it.
Okay. No, that's brilliant, and thank you so much for that. I mean, that sort of sets the stage for really coming down to the crux of the matter, is that, and so I want to throw this question to the businessmen, not to you, Mr. Malik, but to Sandeep and Shobha. And let me put it this way. Let's say you had access to $50 million. What would you do with that capital? How would you ensure return on investment? Where are the areas that you would invest in for your business?
So for me, I think I'll continue to do what I'm doing and expand to more cities, and that's what we are intending to do.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch you, Sandeep.
Yeah, no. So we will continue to do what we are doing, creating more MRFs at scale and recovering more recyclables and do more value add on them, and ensuring that whatever RDF we generate is processed at the nearest possible location.
So what you're saying, Sandeep, is that the technology barrier and the innovation barrier that Mr. Malik referred to in his keynote, those are no longer challenges, right? We're really looking at scale now. Is that a right way to interpret?
So, he also did mention about mistakes. So I think I've made those mistakes already. So I'm now looking at scale, and technology is not a barrier, it's an enabler, rightly said. And definitely we have done a lot of study on the ground about what kind of waste and what challenges to expect from those waste streams to really handle them better. So every plant is a different one, but at the same time, for any layman, it would look almost normal and similar. But for us, it's all about scale and geographical presence as well in the area we operate on.
Okay. And so, Shobha, if you had access to that capital, where would you invest? What do you see as the big investment opportunities in this space? You're muted, Shobha.
Yeah. So I think the fundamental for circular economy is to ensure segregated waste is received. So we will definitely look at building capacities on the ground to support ULBs and other bulk generators in ensuring that the segregation is happening from their side. We would also like to see how we could work with decentralized MRFs and have low-cost technologies that can help do the sorting efficiently. And we would also want to get into a space of recycling difficult streams which currently are not there in the ecosystem, and definitely try to take a risk over there and see if that's going to work, because if that's going to solve a problem, for example, mattress, like I already mentioned, is there a way of recovery of material from the mattress? One example I'm saying. So we would put most of our efforts on segregation at source and sorting it into different categories, and supply to the ecosystem that already exists so that they can continue to flourish and bring down costs that are affordable to the masses. One, and the second big thing is we will want to put our money in some kind of recycling, either work with the informal sector, let's say in electronic waste, who are working in a very informal recycling system, and see if they can get into formal recycling and help develop that sector that is already having skill and knack and interest in this space, and bring them up to a point where not a very large recycler, but at least 100, 200 of them can contribute towards this e-waste recycling.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Shobha. One question to you, Sean, and I keep going back to what Mr. Malik said in the beginning, that, transforming from a waste management to a resource management company and creating impact is the whole story. Now, how does the investing community look at that? I mean, what is sustainable and impact for, let's say, a business? Is it the same way that's mirrored in the financial community?
Look, we've got very clear rules for what can qualify for green, sustainable, in the climate bond certification scheme. You do have to sort to recyclables. You do have to reuse and recycle. You do need to be looking at composting and anaerobic digestion of green waste, where that's part of your particular business. If you've got landfill recovery, you do have to have gas recovery, etc. I put a link in the chat box to the relevant criteria. If you don't have those characteristics, you cannot get access to what is called green money on the international field. That's essentially it. So if you like, standards are beginning to appear. In the European Commission work that I've been working on for some years, we now have regulated definitions for what can be called sustainable, becoming part of the rule set. And next year, we'll be expanding those into a much more detailed rule set around circular economy. All investors, banks and corporations in Europe will be and are being bound by these new rules. If they want to call it sustainable, here's the rule set. It's very simple. Now, this won't be surprising to most of your speakers. This is just good practices around waste management, right? But we know there's a lot of bad practices around waste management. We have to set minimum hurdles. So what we're doing is saying, if you can achieve this minimal hurdle, you can get access to cheaper capital. And that's what we're trying to deliver. Now, this is not going to really work for Binisha, I have to say, in her project, but it will work for Masood. So his company now is large enough and solid enough that it could issue green bonds in the international market and raise capital at preferential rates, assuming, as I suspect it does, to give what I know of his company, that all his criteria meet the international criteria. And that's a very simple idea, right? It's a very simple idea. Good practices gets you more capital and cheaper capital. Very simple. Now, that's been backed by the European Investment Bank and by a variety of other international banks as well. That's where we're going. Now, we've only got the first stage wrong. This is a complex area. We need more rule sets in more areas to make this work over time. That's why in Europe we're doing this further work on circular economy over the next 5 months, and that will flow on to work around the world. We've been speaking to Ministry of Finance in India about an Indian taxonomy or green definitions to be able to link it to cheaper capital. So work will, we believe, happen over the next 12 months in India about this, which will be synchronized with what's going on in Europe, because we want to get some of that cheap European capital. It is very cheap at the moment, etc. So that's the prize. It's a simple idea. There's a lot of complexity here. And at the end of the day, Shoba has to go out and actually make the project work. I appreciate that. But if we can agree on, if we do agree, or rather, if we see the implementation of at least a minimal rule set, it's going to make all our lives easier going forward. And that's the prize.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Sean. One quick question to you, Mr. Malik. We've talked about plastic and we have talked about dry waste. There's a question from the audience about, bio-circular economies, right? Biogas, biofuel. And I know that the government's promoting a lot of that, biomass to biogas and those kind of. A quick comment there in your view, Mr. Malik, on what does that look like from a waste management perspective?
Sure. If I may just add a quick comment in support of what Sean just said. And this is for my colleagues and other entrepreneurs in the call. I think striving to meet international standards is not just access to capital or cheaper capital, green capital should not be your sole criteria for trying to meet international standards. That is definitely one of the outcomes, a welcome outcome. But that is the only way today you can future-proof your investments. If you're setting up a major capital facility that is compliant to current regulations and rules, I can guarantee that environmental laws and standards are only moving in one direction. You will be out of compliance in 3 years, 5 years. Your life of the asset would be 15, 20, 25.
Absolutely.
That's a very expensive lesson that we have learned. I wanted to share that with all of you. One of the ways is to actually de-risk yourself from this compression of time and acceleration of regulations over a much faster pace than we have seen in the past is to aim for a much higher than compliance standard. And that makes good business sense because your assets are, like I said, something that will really be there for 15, 20, 25 years. If you try and move today's standards, if you do not move to the European norms or the other voluntary norms, especially around the Equator Principle, other such standards that are out there, we are setting ourselves for failure. Access to green capital is a secondary benefit. It is future-proofing your own business that we must aim for. To answer your question on the bio, I am very excited about the biocircular aspect of our business. Why? Because this is the one place where I think decentralization is absolutely the key. It makes absolutely no sense. So a lot of cities, I operate in Delhi. A part of my catchment is Asia's largest vegetable market, Azadpur Mandi. Everyone knows about it.
Yes.
Why would I take Azadpur Mandi waste? I mean, it is organic gold. And do anything else other than biomethanation. I'm doing the same in Chennai, where the second largest such market is Coimbatore, and I have a biomethanation plant there. We are investing in technology, both European and local, with European partners and local partners and startups, to make biomethanation, both dry biomethanation and wet biomethanation, work with mixed waste also.
Wow.
Now that is the holy grail, and should we get there, I mean, you will hear about it. I will not be shy about that. But we are investing in it. Maybe we'll fail. But today, I know that for certain types of waste, I give you the example vegetable market waste, food waste, other such waste, the directly to biomethanation, any type of biomethanation is the preferred route that we have. And with biomethanation, it works better at decentralization. It works better at capacities that are slightly smaller than a 5,000 tons per day unit. So looking at 100 to 250 tons per day, decentralized biomethanation facilities, I believe, is very much part of our growth plans.
Fantastic. Thank you for providing that clarity. So it's quite evident that the field is complex. The regulations are evolving. There is a need for bringing certain standards, like Sean referred to. The spirit of entrepreneurship remains in countries like India. Many businesses have survived in spite and despite government policies and regulations. So clearly, this is a exciting space in that sense of the promise of the potential that it holds. So we are coming close to the hour, and I promised to give 10-15 minutes back to the audience, which I have failed at miserably. So that adds to my list of failures. But as closing comments, Sean, Mr. Malik, what would you sum all of this, into, let's say, a couple of key points that the audience can take back, and especially those who are in the waste management business? Why should they be so enthusiastic, despite the complexity of the situation today? Sean, do you want to go first?
Sure. Look, this is a tough task.
Yeah.
We've heard this today.
Yeah.
There is a lot to be done. The challenge is nothing. Of course, the prize, beyond hopefully businesses that can earn a good return for their shareholders and contribute to a better society, a much better society, is of course the prize of ensuring India is better prepared for the shocks that are coming forward in the future. I want to link it back to climate. Making sure our cities are resilient, making sure our resource usage is lower and more efficient. These are actually important parts of creating sustainable societies that will be able to survive the shocks of the future. The world, in this context of Europe and other countries, recognize this. We've been adopting in Europe and now in Japan and Korea and China, and soon to be in the US, very strong climate targets. What we're doing is explaining this isn't just about getting emissions down, although there is a huge emissions agenda in waste, as we know. It's also about ensuring the resilience of our societies, our urban forms, and so on, which means our environmental situation. And that's what you're doing fundamentally. You are part of that big picture. Now, what we're trying to work on is the lower cost capital. I think Masood is perfectly right. I'm trying to hold out a very straightforward benefit. But when we speak in bond issuers across South Asia and East Asia, they're not doing green bonds because of the capital benefit when they're getting it. They're doing it because of the conversation they then get to have with shareholders and with governments, the deeper relationship they have with people who understand this is part of the future and also part of the lower cost investments for the future. If you're doing things that are part of the future, you are less likely to be affected by policy changes. If you're doing things that are part of the past, like investing in gas and oil, for example, you are likely to be impacted by policy changes going forward. So investors are putting in a risk reduction on these kinds of investments. I'm going to say that good practices in waste management fall squarely within that basket. These are investments that are going to be part of the future, that are going to be part of government policy going forward. We know that. It's only a matter of how and when, not if. And actually, they're better investments they might otherwise see. And we need capital to flow. And I guess the challenge is it's your job to make the individual deal and the individual project work. But I can tell you, if we meet these minimum standards, Masood's right, they're about regulatory standards, they're about what ought to be done. It's not just about cheaper capital. However, I do think better access to capital is what we're going to achieve here. And we need that because we need your businesses to scale up and to be successful and, frankly, clean up India fast. That's my rant, Shailendra. Over to the people who really know what's going to be done on the ground.
You got your 2 minutes, Sean. Thank you for that. The same question to you, Masoodji, but I just wanted a little a little Indian angle to it. While I understand that resources are important and all of that, we've got to build back better. And India has also the problem of jobs and employment and things like that, and particularly after COVID. How do you bring those elements together? Because essentially they're all part of the impact equation. And
no, I think that's a great question, and I'll start with something that has that's always been on the back of my mind the last 6 months. We should not let this crisis go waste.
Yeah.
This is truly a tipping point. Yeah. For a whole set of completely unrelated reasons, the climate issue is back on the table. The sustainability issues are mainstream discussion points. What used to be in the early part of my career, just living room conversation or bar room conversation is now boardroom conversation. And I'm seeing this in India for the very first times, because it's probably for the very first times business leaders are realizing that something has changed, and that change is irreversible and it's fundamental. And if their business models do not change, they would be out of business, and they would be out of business soon. So I think from a overall sort of direction in which the economy is moving, people realize that there is a need for change. I think there are lots of sort of competing directions that the economy could take. I would argue to take the direction towards carbon neutrality, water neutrality, and a more sustainable future, not because it's good for the ozone layer or for saving the whales. It is because it is investments which are now finally at scale will demonstrate to investors that kind of a return gives more resilient, more sustainable financial returns back to the shareholders. Today, someone talked about the role of the informal sector in waste management. I think I am privileged to work in an organization that has 20,000 employees, 22,000 employees. The reason why I'm privileged is because that employee base has given me the kind of resilience during the last 6 months that I would argue no Western company ever had. I was able to deploy 18,500 out of the 22,000+ people within 11 to 12 hours of a lockdown. So there was hardly any gap between the world sort of stopping and us getting back on the roads, because of the fact that the human capital that is so intrinsically a part of our business in India gives it a resilience that's very different from the kind of technology-driven resilience and automation-driven resilience that we see elsewhere. They have to be a part of this solution here. That is where capability development, mainstreaming of this as a profession, and giving respect that this profession deserves, that's the social dimension. And finally, I would say that it has always been a very good idea. But I think for a set of reasons, whether it's policy, whether it is the consequence of not doing anything, whether it's access to capital, whether it is enabling environment, when it from a civic society standpoint, it's a good idea whose time has come. And that is why I think it is time for us to embrace this and not let this fritter away. The next 18 months will be absolutely path defining for the whole environmental sector, but in particular also for the waste management sector. The decisions that we take, the policies that get framed, the financing norms that get evolved, and what entrepreneurs do by way of making bets, I think will define the future collectively for all of us.
No, thanks so much for that. Thanks. I think we have come on to the hour now. Thank you everyone for that brilliant and engaging discussion, this complex subject. Clearly, there are a lot of opportunities as we move ahead. My deep appreciation to all the panelists and to the audience. With that, I'll end the webinar for now, although would love to continue for another couple of hours. And hand it over back to Neeraj to conclude the session.
Thank you so much, Shalendra. Thank you so much. So I would like to add here that I was listening to this entire discussion very carefully, and I must add here that I was the beneficiary of this discussion. So, and like me, I could see many good questions in the chat box which you have already taken, and the attendance was also wonderful at this time of when there are many webinars happening around, because the subject was excellent, and so the eminent speakers we have for today's discussion. So it was really a wonderful discussion. So thank you so much, Mr. Sean Kidney, Mr. Sandeep Patel, Mr. Masood Malik, Ms. Shobha Raghavan, Ms. Vinisha, and Shailendra ji. Thank you so much for moderating the session so well. So thank you so much, and we will definitely meet very soon in our next webinar. So thank you so much. Thank you. Amit, please close the webinar. Thank you so much, Amit, for the entire IT and admin work. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.